Welcome to Credit Shift, everybody, the podcast that dives into the challenges, opportunities, strategies that are shaping the world of digital debt collection, digital transformation, and the like. I'm Mark Opperman. I'm your co-host today. I'm co-founder at Webio. Today I'm joined by Graham Bragg. Graham brings a wealth of experience to today's conversation, has been involved heavily in this area for many years now. And really in this episode, what we're going to do is for the next 15 to 20 minutes, we're just going to sort of talk about choosing the right AI for debt collections. There's custom language models. What exactly does that mean? Versus large language models. And again, there's been a lot of talk about that. People like to shorten it to LLMs, your Chat GPT, your Perplexity, and whatever other ones are out there. There's loads out there. But really, as I said, today is about understanding the differences, what AI can do for you, and why there is such a big difference between a custom language model and just a standard large language model. So really, Graham, I'm going to sort of start it off with a sort of an easy question, really to yourself would be, give us what exactly, as you see it, what would you see the differences between a custom language model, like what we use at Webio, versus the large language model?
Yeah, no, again, it's something we talked about a number of times, but I've just got to go back to the intro there. Graham has a wealth of knowledge. I thought we were going to be talking about sailing or something, my expertise, but no, this is work stuff. You're right. Okay. So, no,
Yeah,
it's,
I'm sorry. Back to the
Mark,
mundane
it's a while since I
talk about
spoke to you, so
AI.
I thought I'd, give you a hard time, but no. Yeah, no, it's a really important question. I think it's something that a lot of people don't know. As you say, people have heard large language models. They've heard, Chat GPT, Perplexity, Meta this, Llama, and all those sort of things, which are the LLMs, the large language models.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is the difference? Well, a large language model really is something like a Chat GPT, something like those things we just talked about there, where there's billions and billions of users putting billions of bits of information in, tapping into billions and billions of servers around the world to get that information. And it's so widespread. It's like, it understands good bits of some information, and then it's got weaknesses in others. And the problem with that is when you're in a regulated industry such as finance and collections, is that what it does, it tends to try and fill in the gaps. So it's got millions of bits of information. How much of that is relevant to that conversation? Well, some of it, yes. But most of it, and it is most of it, 99% of it, not relevant. So you're talking about 1% of a large language model being relevant to what you're doing. And it hasn't specifically been trained on those sort of conversations. And
Yeah.
this is where a custom language model comes in. It is, as it says, custom language. It is that subset of that 1%, but pushed to 100% with everything focused on the sort of conversations that your industry is having. So it's not just learning the basic bits and trying to fill the gaps as a large language model will. So it will actually have the answers,
I
and when it
have to
doesn't, it
stop you
knows.
there. I do smile at that when you say, "Oh, it fills the gaps." It's ever such a pleasant way of saying, "Yeah, it's making stuff up," and it will
Yeah.
sound right and proper. And somebody then could have too much of an over reliance on something that, frankly, and again, isn't it a great an industry term, hallucinations.
Yep.
No, it's just made it up, dude. That's but again, they've should we say soft coated a little, calling it a hallucination. And you're quite right. Like that, filling in the gaps without real proper information is the challenge for a regulated industry like that we operate in, because there is, and God, we could spend quite a while here talking about the different situations and the bits that get it onto the news regarding where generative AI hasn't really shone and hasn't really bathed itself in glory in certain particular situations. And frankly, I think a lot of our clients just couldn't afford the risk.
No, absolutely, and yeah, you're right. Hallucinations, a lovely word. Lies, is another word for it's actually putting in things that aren't true. It's very simple. It's such a weird thing that what they've tried to do and where this comes from is that the people that put the large language models together, it's more concentrated on giving you a good response that reads well
Yeah,
rather than all the detail and data that you need. So it can
yeah,
actually miss out some really relevant stuff because it didn't sound so good in the sentence, you know.
yeah.
And it's people say, oh yeah, but I can control that. I've got a professional version of this, and I can say double check your data and do this. It's still going to give you issues. Amazingly, one of the stats that shocked me was at the beginning of 2024, it's a beginning, they haven't released a new one for last year, and it will have improved. 69% of responses on ChatGPT had hallucinations, stroke lies, whatever you want to call them, in the response. You know,
Wow.
stuff that wasn't true. You just can't
Yeah.
do that in a regulated
That could have
industry.
been
You can't talk
1%,
to
that
someone
could have
about
been
finance.
20%. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it really does. Yeah.
absolutely.
It's interesting though, you know, and I've spoken to a number of clients that have, should we say, experimented with some of the generative
Same.
AI.
Yep.
And one of the really interesting things was that, and again, these are, you know, gosh, they've done, and they're very clever and very competent. But they were using some Gen AI capabilities, and they were surprised how quickly the responses got very aggressive
Hmm.
from the AI agent, simply because those guardrails regarding the industry weren't there, and there was no real training in that regard. So it, you know, you can get some very quirky results. And I say quirky, and that being a very big negative for our industry. So yeah, it is. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. Like the power of the whole Gen AI. I think from my own point of view, and what a lot of market commentators are sort of forecasting is that you're going to see a lot more of what we have done regarding that customized collections language model. You're going to have every industry is going to have that deep vein of knowledge into there. That could be agri sciences, that could be aviation, that could be agriculture,
Yeah,
that could be
agreed.
medicine. So they're going to take the principles, what people have proven with the Gen AI. I know it's an incredibly, you know, effective marketing. You go on, you type in, and it gives you this very quick response, and you kind of go, "Oh my God, isn't that brilliant?" I know you use it, I use it. It's great, but you do actually have to read through, make sure that it's correct, and then actually use the bits that you want to use. But I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the more and more commentators are saying that it will take that concept and start, every industry is going to have that deep knowledge, and it's going to be customized for again, look, we're there already. We've been doing this for, gosh, a little over 4 years now. It's been a while. It hasn't been, you know, a lot of people think, oh, AI has been that overnight success. It hasn't. All of these chat GPTs and what have you, there's been work going on these for a long time to get
yeah,
them to the level
absolutely.
where they are today.
You know, I think, you know, again, we know these. We've all spoken to people that have tried, you know, using ChatGPT, trying to control it and whatever. And again, this is really why Webio have gone down the custom model. It's it's again a really interesting one, again from the point of view of how you use that custom model. Not only is it trained on specific wording and looking for vulnerabilities within certain types of conversation, what it's also doing is it's stripping that conversation down. So one thing Webio does, and I think where we struck gold, and I'll be honest with you, is we broke that down to three things. We said, okay, we need to understand what's being said and put it into context and the
Yep.
sentiment, and is there a vulnerability, all those things in it. But actually, we've also got to listen and say, what have they actually told us? Not just what they've said, but what have they told us? So I can make a payment, great. But if that sentence was, look, I can make a payment, but I can't make that payment today, I could do it on Tuesday after I get paid, and it would only be £50 rather than the £70. Bang. Okay. NLP, sentiment, understanding, knows what that sentence is saying. I can't make the payment now, can in the future. But actually, there's lots of what we call entities in there. I know this is a thing I get a bit
Yep.
overexcited about, Mark. You know that, how we
No, and
strip these
listen,
things down and pull the
like
data out. But
entities, those bits of, you just like, and if we were to, if I just simplify it, the three pillars of our customized collections language model that would be most pertinent to people at this stage: would be entities, intents, and propensities. And even if we just explained them today, for me, they're the takeaway. Because rather than getting caught up on the whole AI, it's magic and it'll do this and it'll do that, actually, some conversations are quite basic, but actually, you do need the capability, as you quite rightly said. I can't pay you today. I can pay you next Tuesday. I can't pay you the full amount. Can I pay you £50? Now, what you're doing there is that, like, if that conversation was with an agent, the agent now would be looking at that and it would go, okay, next Tuesday, what's the date? £50 is well over 60% of the overall total. So I can accept that as a promise to pay. All right, I can continue that conversation. Digital up to now would never be able to do that, because even the concept of I could pay you next Tuesday because I get paid on Monday. Okay, it's going to work out. What is that date? Is that before a due date? Oh, it is. Great. And that personalized journey being able to. So it is interesting. And I know, Graham, that you've seen the numbers when you look at the number of failed conversations, even at the identification and verification stage, the number that actually have to default to an agent, because let's be honest,
Dates. We
we're
love
humans,
dates
we're
and their
awkward.
formats, right?
That give your date in date A,
Yeah.
month, year. Yeah, my date of
Yeah.
birth is the 19th of September. It was the year between 1979 and 1981. You guess what year it is, and you're sort of going, "Oh my, why are you so awkward?"
Really? But yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's the. I know from the ID and V and on the entities, that's something that you've seen a huge amount of reduction, let's say, of fail. It's
Oh,
really the
very much
concept
so.
is
I think, Mark, you said, people think that AI is magic. And I think this is what it's tried to create itself as, rather than a
yeah,
set of tools to be used to achieve something. And that's what AI is, a set of tools to help you achieve something, rather
yeah.
than magic. But by the way,
Good
these
description.
models, as I said,
Yeah,
they create these sentences that read really well by filling in the gaps. Again, read that as you will, because it
yeah,
sounds really good. It's a really good answer. So it's magic. It knew everything. It didn't. It didn't. It took some basics, searched a million places, found some information. Is it true? Is it not? It doesn't know. And then it gives you a really well written, easy to read sentence. It's not magic. It's doing things in the
yeah.
background to pull stuff together with big focus on making it sound good. That's not the key part. The key part is very much understanding and taking that conversation to an end result that makes the customer happy, you happy, and everyone happy, basically.
So it
And you're
really,
right.
and I think we touched on this already, isn't it? It's just making automation and those journeys better. If I understand when somebody says that, I can't pay you now, I'll pay you next Tuesday, I'll do this, I'll do that. Now, if the machine, I'm just going to go, if the machine can understand all that, process it correctly, validate the information, and then it moves it on to the main conversation itself is where the next part is the intents. Um, Talk to us about that,
It's
because
yeah,
that really
it's
is
having
really sort of that's clever stuff.
Yeah, no, it is. It's having these three layers, really, and we talked about intent, propensity, and you know, basically going through the densities piece. But there are those three levels need to be done separately, because the first phase, it needs to understand what's being said. This is the piece where ChatGPT and those big LLMs are reasonably good. They can pretty much understand whether you're offering to make a payment, you're
Yep.
in trouble, you're doing that, and that's what we would call the sort of the intent piece. Really, what is the intent of what the customer has said to me? The intent is they want to make a payment. They can't make a payment, they need to do a payment plan. Great, that's the intent piece. So breaking that down, but using a language model that understands the conversation specifically within that sort of finance marketplace is key. And then we talk about intent and entities, sorry. And entities then is a layer on top of that says, okay, I know they want to make a payment next week, so it's a delayed payment. What can I pull out of that that's relevant? Actually, I can pull out they want to make it on Tuesday. They want to make you £50. Store those, remember those, use them in the conversation, check them against your
Yeah.
rules and regulations that you have to do, and use them where you can to guide the conversation right at the end part. And then the last one there is propensity, which is saying, okay, I understand what the intent of what you're saying is. I've captured all this information that's going to be relevant in the conversation, but what can I read within that maybe I should know? And propensity is a little bit about like sentiment, really. The propensity of that is actually I've picked up a vulnerability. They said they can pay, but they can't pay till Tuesday because they've been in hospital, or they couldn't understand the letter that was written to them, or whatever the vulnerability is, second language, health, mental health,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And it will pick all those up. So the propensity of that, it's trying to work out, hidden meaning in all of those conversations. So by having those three layers specifically within the debt and finance market,
Yep.
which are trained on those conversations, gives you the best outcome you're ever going to get. And I say that's where I think we struck gold, is doing that very early on and
I'd
training
agree.
those models.
I'd agree. And really, it's just really sort of emphasizing the three separate jobs that it's doing. All of this, and again, this is where this has been trained, pre-trained to understand what's a promise to pay, what's you need to do an I&E, you need to do this, you need to do that. And as I said, Webio has been doing this for 4 years. So from a customized collections language model, with the guardrails for the industry and what have you, that really is where the main difference. So look, we never want to sort of get caught up on the technology too much. I think the way that you've described it, it's a tool to help you get your job done. That's a really, down to earth, practical understanding. Sometimes we do tend to get caught up on buzzwords and you kind of go, actually, I don't understand any of that now. Keeping it simple is important. The two things I think that we're going to see in 2025 that are going to make a huge difference will be where the Gen AI element comes more to the fore, and that will be conversational summaries. So a conversation back and forth will now be summarized for a quick summation for the agent, so they're able to read in very quickly. And then secondly, the co-pilot. That's where it's helping, and it will be making suggestions to the agent to be able to go back to the customer rather than templated responses that they would use today. It's where the AI is going to start creating responses for the agent to review and then send, not jumping directly to sending on its own at this moment in time. Because quite frankly, much that sounds wonderful, I don't think I've come across any compliance director that would allow that at this moment in time, unless it has proven itself for a very extended period of time in a controlled environment. And that's what we're doing with the co-pilot. So any other I'm conscious of the time, Graham, but any other bits that you would say are important before we leave today's conversation?
Yeah, I think just to summarize a couple of things we talked about and sort of give real life examples of them. We talked about sort of an I&E or giving yourself details to confirm who you are, whatever it may be. I don't know. We talked about dates very, very quickly though. Dates. We talked about there's lots of inversions. Just to explain that, you talked about, again, lots of them failed. Yes, they did. Over 70% of check-in of who you are failed, right? The reason being that people didn't put the right date in, and it had to be in a format that matched the data that was on your system. And your data on the system was in ISO fast standard here, but it was in, month date in American style over there. AI can do all of that. As you said, next Tuesday, the year between 71 and 73, I've got a bit older than you was. I think you went to 80s, but it will know when that is, and it will standardize that in that your so it can match against whatever your system's got and pass you through. So there's that, but there's also that understanding of the industry you're in. So again, understanding that someone can't make a payment, but they can make a part payment. Well, that's fine. We understand that. We understood we took the £50 out, but it's that deeper level of going, you know what? Actually, the best thing here is a payment plan. We need to negotiate or work on a payment plan. And a special customized model will know that and take it down that route rather than just go, okay, fine, that's what you can do. That's what we'll do. It fits. But actually, this is like, well, the best thing for this customer is a new payment plan. Are we sure that 50 is okay? Let's do that. And then the system can be set up to do as much of that as possible. And I think that's the key part. It's focused.
That is us done for this particular episode of the Credit Shift podcast. Thank you for everybody's time. And we'll see you on our next podcast, the Credit Shift podcast.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you.